Alright, so you have heard tons of tips on how to succeed and grow in your career, but hardly any one of these cover one critical skill set that we need to master in order to maximize our impact, and that is email communication. If you would like to learn how to avoid some of the common mistakes that we make and also learn how to effectively communicate over email, this video is for you. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Salman. I'm a tech product and innovation expert based in Bangkok, and I'm currently working as the Vice President Head of Innovation here in Telenor. In this channel, I talk about personal transformation and how you, whether a university student or young professional, can accelerate your learning for a better future. With that, I'll keep all the descriptions in the timestamp below, so feel free to jump into whichever the parts you want to start first. Let's dive in. So the first tip is not to get the name of the person receiving the email wrong. Now this may not sound like a typical mistake, but those of us who are in the receiving end who knows how it feels when someone gets your name wrong. Now, getting the name wrong at first is not a problem, but repeating it for the second time and continuing to repeat it over a period of time is. What it does is that it shows your lack of attention to detail, which can eventually lead to having a negative impression about you. So please try to avoid this so that people don't think that you are not paying attention clearly to who you're communicating to and what you're trying to get out of that email communication. Now, the tip number 2 is to have a call to action. Now, in my opinion, this is probably the most important of all tips that I can share with you. Now, the goal of writing an email is to have an effective communication between two or more parties. But when you're writing an email without a clear call to action, it misses the prioritization from the person receiving the email. Hence, you will end up missing out on the desired outcome you would expect from that person. So how do you start a great call to action? It starts from the very subject of the email. When you're writing a subject, it can either have a focus on a time or a person, or sometimes both, depending on the type of email you're sending with an urgency it has. Remember, the goal for a call to action is to have a clear expectation set from the very onset when someone is previewing the email. Even from their cell phone, when they're looking into the notification, they're actually looking at what exactly is said in the subject line. You can also highlight this call to action within the body as well, and I would recommend if you can put it within the first 50 characters of your email or within the first 20 to 30 seconds of the email. That really captures the specific action you're expecting from the person receiving it. That way you would get much better quality reply and within the time that you would probably expecting from them. Now, the third tip is to be on the same email thread for the same topic that you're discussing. Now, I'll be honest, I made this mistake so many times in my life, and I still sometimes struggle to stay on track when others are also sending emails for the same topic, but from different directions. The goal here is very simple. When we're discussing a specific topic, we're trying to stay on the same discussion points. What is important is that sometimes in an email, we'll find out in the next tip is that we add or remove someone from the conversations. However, if you are not in the same thread, then we'll not be able to help the other person getting added in the middle or in somewhere towards the end of the email thread to get a full clarity of what this whole conversation is about. So it's so important to make sure that you stay on the thread instead of writing a new email every time you're sending an email to someone. Please remember, sending emails is not like writing a post on the social media or uploading a new picture every single time we go on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. The goal here is to stay on track so that people who are following that particular conversation can stay in the conversation instead of losing certain critical part of it. The tip number 4 is to get to the point and cut all the garbages. Sometimes we want to write a lot in one single email when we feel the need to explain ourselves. And it gets only more complicated if you're discussing on a topic that's a very complex one. But the goal here is to make sure that we write a concise email with a specific job to be done, and that's mentioned within the first 30 seconds of the reading. It really helps the person receiving it gets the key essence of what the action he or she should do, and you ends up getting a very adequate answer. The result, a happy person sitting on the other side of the desk. Another tip here that I can say specifically from my life is not to write emails all the time just because. Sometimes simply a phone call to the person you're going to write the email to makes a big difference. Specifically, if you're giving a feedback to someone on a particular topic or about their job, really think about whether it's the right thing to write an email with a lot of explanations that may just be too hard for the person to read it. Instead, make a phone call, set up a meeting, and just say this in a more in-person discussions. It really helps cut the discussion easily, gets the communication done more effectively, and you end up not regretting writing a long email that you probably wouldn't be liking in the first place to receive it if someone were to write to you. The tip number 5 is don't include everyone you know in one single email. Instead, respect their time. According to a McKinsey analysis in the US, an average person receives 120 emails per day, and they only get to respond 25% of those emails. So instead of CCing 10-20 people in an email who may not have anything to do with the subject of the email or has no call to action, cut them a slack. Really don't send them emails just because you want them to be included. What it does is that you're showing kindness by not including them to an email while they're already getting hundreds of emails from the rest of the organizations on a single day. That way, they are happy, the inbox is clear, and they don't feel as stressed as they need to be. The tip number 6 is summarize what you read in the email and turn them into action items. Now, when I was working in sales, this is something that really was probably the most important element of any communications that I had with my clients. I had to have multiple, like sometimes 3, 4, 5 sales meetings every single day, all of them physical meetings, and that too coming back at the office, writing and responding to each one of the people at the meetings. The goal was always to make sure that I summarize the requirements of my client in a ways that even after having a 1-hour meeting, I can concise it into a 3-minute read with clear action items on what needs to be done next. Similarly, when you're reading an email, the goal is to not turn this email into a thread of 100 emails. Although I've seen a lot of those, and I think I even kind of will be terrified to see a thread that has that many emails in one row. Instead, the goal is how to minimize the entire conversation in an effective communication manner so that we get to the point, we tell what's the action item, and we try to close that and move on to the next chapter. So please make sure when you're writing an email, after receiving it from someone, you summarize what you understood from that person's email, turn them into action item. So even the person who is writing it, if they had any lack of clarity of what they understood from what they needed to write to you, they will change it, and then you will see that you actually understood their email and you actually even gave recommendations as to what needs to be done next. And to me, that is an excellent way of working like a consultant who really not only sees your problems but also gives you a clear summary recommendations of what needs to be happened next. And the final tip is to appreciate when it's due. We're in the midst of a big chaos with this pandemic, both in our work and our personal life. So an email can really be used as a great source of happiness if you use it correctly. We get so robotic while writing emails that we forget about the person on the receiving end, how they feel when they get our emails. In my opinion, simply writing a great thank you note to anyone we work, whether it's our team members, our line managers, or anyone within our ecosystems, can go a long way to change how they feel about their work and how they would go on with their day. I would highly encourage you to write thank you notes whenever you can. A great thing about thank you note is that people should collect all the thank you notes that they get in life. I actually even have an inbox that says for rainy days, where I forward all the thank you notes that I ever receive, so that whenever I'm going through a bad day, I can go to that folder and see how someone appreciated something about my work, which can give me a lot of confidence and really help me realize that I should not be giving up on whatever that I'm going through. So there you go, all the 7 tips that I can share from my personal experience that has been extremely useful for me over the years, and I continue to find lots of benefits just by being able to communicate effectively over email with the different stakeholders that I communicate on a daily basis. With that, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please consider doing so, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.